This is True Wrestling Fables, a delightful story hour filled with larger-than-life tales from the world of professional wrestling. The following podcast is scheduled for one fall with a 60-minute time limit. Coming down the aisle, your hosts from the mean streets of Gary, Indiana, the phenomenal Tony Sai, and his podcast partner from the dirty South, Johnny Bruiser Bowles.
I mean, the amount of research I've done for this alone has prepared me. I feel like I've been preparing for this all of my life.
And it's all leading up to this moment. This is our Mania moment. Actually, you know what? I take that back. This is our first indie match. We've been hanging around the podcast world. We've been wanting to set up the ring. We've had a few people, give us the high five. We've taken selfies with all the other wrestlers and whatnot. We've
sold a few t-shirts,
sucking up to the promoters. And finally, we've been taking the bumps, taking the chops.
I had my match with Bastion Booger.
Right. And now we get to actually, we're having our first indie match. One day we might make it to the WrestleMania of podcasts. I don't know. What is the WrestleMania of podcasts?
Reddit? I don't know.
Right.
The WrestleMania of podcasts. Oh, getting a TV show.
Yeah. That would be awesome. That would be great. Is this going to end up as a TV show?
I mean, if it doesn't, why not shoot for it? I'm calling it right now. Just like Babe Ruth called his shot.
Bam.
Boom. This
Right
is
here.
going to be a TV show someday.
Let's do it. I'm going to hold you to it and you hold me to it. And we'll be, 95 years old in the nursing home, watching the network together.
Holding each other.
Yep.
To it.
I love it. Oh, that's great. Tony.
Yes.
Tell me a story. Tell me a true wrestling fable. What do you have today?
Well, with all wrestling stories, you are dealing with stories that are, coming from the mouths of people that are kind of real people and kind of fake people. So this story may or may not be true whatsoever, but
I feel
it
like
is true enough.
This whole podcast needs like an allegedly.
Yes,
that is our favorite word here is allegedly. So just insert allegedly before any sentence that either Tony or I ever say.
Today, let me tell you about what allegedly happened in North Korea in 1995.
What? Yeah,
Dude,
this is definitely allegedly. I don't know if anything has actually ever been correctly documented that came out of North Korea.
We have
Isn't everything propaganda
there's some pictures. So I'll post. When we post this episode, we'll post pictures. So this was a real event that happened. It's just a matter of whether or not it happened the way that carny wrestlers say it happened. But so the story is that it's 1995. The year before North Korea's dictator died.
What?
And
okay, so
this is
1995 North Korea.
So right now they have Kim Jong-un. His dad was Kim Jong-il, who he was the most popular one. But then his dad, Kim Il-sung, was like a living god. So imagine if Kim Jong-il is Jesus, this guy is God the Father in the North Korean religious political Bible or whatever.
Right. And then his granddaddy was called Come Get Some.
Oh my God.
And he was a professional wrestler. And that's the story.
No. This is the story. 1995. And North Korea is feeling insecure. They're like, okay, our leader's dead. All of our people are bummed. And what are we going to do to kind of show our country, they were kind of losing popularity with their countrymen. And so they were like, hey, how can we show our country that we're not this oppressive autocracy, but actually we're just this hip, 1995 country. And so what they decided to do is throw a festival called the International Sports and Cultural Festival for Peace.
Oh my gosh.
Which
all
just
for
sounds
peace,
like,
guys. We're doing this for peace.
And so what they do is they say, hey, we're going to have this big festival and we're going to have the two biggest American stars fight each other, Hulk Hogan and Muhammad Ali. Well,
what?
Yes, and
In
they didn't get the word.
1995?
Yes, because in 1995, Muhammad Ali sadly had already had Parkinson's, and Hulk Hogan was, he was in WCW by that time, so he was kind of, that was kind of a slow year for Hogan. But anyways,
Hulkamania was, it was
dwindling down. It's the year before he goes into the NWO,
right.
so
Hulkamania was just taking a walk. It wasn't running wild.
Yes, exactly. He had been a few suspensions, whatever. Well, so anyways, so the president or dictator or chancellor or whatever, Kim Jong-il, calls Ted Turner and says, hey, we're having this thing. We need Hulk Hogan and Muhammad Ali. And Ted Turner goes to Hulk Hogan and is like, hey, man, you're going to go over to North Korea. And Hulk is like, no way, brother. I'm not going over there. You never know what could happen, dude. You better believe it, Jack. I'm not going.
Hey, dude, did you talk to Kim Jong-il? Is he going to do this?
He's like, hey, man, Kim Jong-il, you got to talk to my manager, Jimmy Hart. but right now he's with the Dungeons of Doom, so I'm not going to be able to do the job for you.
Oh my god.
So anyways, they end up not being able to get Hogan, and so they ask Ric Flair and the Steiner brothers to go. And so they decided, like, okay, cool. So they got Ric Flair and the Steiner brothers and Scott Norton to fly over, and then some New Japan guys. And
okay, hold on. What do you legitimately think Hulk's excuse was?
Well, supposedly he said, he just said, Eric Bischoff said there's no way. He just said, no way, brother, like not going to happen. But
I wonder what's on the list of like Hulk's like, I'm not doing that list. Like figured there has to be a pretty short list because he's like, you got the opening the pasta restaurant. You got all the reality shows, Thunder in Paradise. What was it? Suburban Commando, Mr. Nanny. Like he's done a lot. He said yes to a lot of things.
Like pretty embarrassing stuff.
Right. All that stuff with Bubba the Love Sponge and whatnot and his wife,
yes.
All that kind of stuff.
Bless his soul.
But the list of things Hulk says no to, North Korea is on top of that list.
Yes. Dude, that just goes to show you like how bad things are for North Korea. It's like, hey, look at this guy would do anything, but he won't come visit you. And so Ric Flair, he ends up taking the gig. And so what they actually ended up doing, it was cool, was they set up the first ever match between Antonio Inoki, who Antonio Inoki is like
the Hulk Hogan of Japan.
Yes, exactly. And so it's like, okay, cool. Like the Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan of Japan, and he runs the New Japan. And so they put that as the headliner match or whatever. And so literally they decide to throw this huge festival, and they're just wanting to be like, hey, look, this is how like just hilarious North Korea is. It's like, look, guys, we want to show the world and our people that we're like the greatest country, and we have all these great international allies. And so we're going to throw a wrestling show. And literally all of the WCW guys couldn't even fly directly from the U.S. to Korea. They had to fly to Japan first, and then a North Korean military jet comes and picks them up from Japan.
Wow.
And it's from like World War II era. And so you have these big, like beefy 300-pound steroided up 90s wrestlers trying to fit in this airplane. And they get in the airplane and they can't even, there's no seat belts. And all of them have their heads like touching the ceiling. So they're like hunched over for this flight to North Korea.
Oh my gosh. So, okay, what happened to Muhammad Ali? Did they just like put a press release that was just like, oh, never mind?
Well, so what they did was they couldn't get Hulk Hogan, but Muhammad Ali, because it was called, like Muhammad Ali was a diplomat by this time. So he was kind of done being the boxer. And now he was like, an ambassador for Islamic peace. And he was like, he was seen as like a peace figure. Yeah, well, and so that was right
before he did the lighting the torch at the Olympics in '96.
Exactly. And so he did end up going, but they realized, okay, he can't fight, but
no bumps for Muhammad.
Yeah. And so since Muhammad Ali couldn't wrestle, obviously, Ted Turner worked out a deal for him to go over there and be like a peace ambassador. And so literally they convinced like Muhammad Ali and Ric Flair and these WCW guys like, hey, look, we're trying to ease the tensions of relations between the U.S. and North Korea. We need to send you guys in. Like,
the special ops team. This should be a movie.
Like the Expendables. Like,
right.
It's literally like Expendables 4 already happened.
Yeah. And, oh my gosh. Who? I mean, obviously they had like the Steiners, Flair, Norton. I mean, who would be your pro wrestling? Who is your Survivor Series team to save America, Tony?
Honestly, you know what? The fact that we're still here just goes to show you that Ted Turner knew the Survivors team that was needed to save America. So I'm going to go with the Steiner brothers, Scott Norton, Ric Flair, and Muhammad Ali.
My God, that's
the team
right there. And
World War III didn't happen because of this WCW diplomatic thing.
That's
and
amazing.
So what about you? Who do you got?
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like I think Scott Norton on that team, he's kind of like a little bit under the radar, you know, like you have to be a real wrestling fan to know who Scott Norton is or a real fan of the movie Over the Top. And sure, I'm going with you on that. I'm going to think like, Scott Norton. I think Ric Flair just for the pizzazz, Muhammad Ali for the, worldwide renown, and the Steiner brothers. I mean, they fill the role of like, the grunts, the guinea pigs, like go like.
If they need to stick a pencil in anyone's butt, Scott's there.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? I think it's okay that Hulk Hogan is removed from that team a little bit because, I don't know, maybe a little too patriotic. Maybe he comes in there. Hulkamania doesn't need to run wild in peace talks. We got,
exactly.
A couple of woos. Scott Norton there, just kind of the, slow and steady wins the race. Steiner brothers, in case
Scott
anything
Norton's
gets
already
crazy.
been over in Japan, so he knows the Asian culture. He's already been wrestling in New Japan.
Exactly.
Starting the original NWO over there. And so then, anyways,
right. I think you're right.
All the details are finalized. They get into the country via the Japanese embassy, get into North Korea. And they get to Japan, and then before this military plane gets in, they're like, hey, by the way, like their guide is meeting with them, is like, hey, by the way, just so you know, like, you guys are not our responsibility whatsoever. So like, we can't guarantee your safety at all. So like, once you leave here, like we just like, we can't be responsible for you whatsoever. And so like, the thing that's so funny is all of the wrestlers, every single one of them, they were like, hey, the only time I was reading like the newspaper was to see like the sports section or see if I had made the newspaper. So none of them really knew like how dire of a situation it was in North Korea. They didn't really realize until they got there. And so they're sitting in this plane, they're hunched over, and they're barely fitting in there. A few hours later, they land in North Korea. When they land there, the buildings are just all cement colored. None of them are painted or anything. And they're just the same color as the road. And they're all just abandoned buildings that are only set up just for like when diplomats are arriving from other countries. And so I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Interview with like Seth Rogen.
Yeah.
How he gets there and there's like a fake grocery store.
Yeah.
That's literally what it is. There is a fake town, literally a fake town by the landing strip to kind of be like, oh, hey, this is normal. But it's totally not normal because everything is just completely gray and like cement colored walls, and they're just abandoned buildings that are supposed to make it look like, oh, look, we're this like country that's got it together.
Oh my gosh. North Korea is a nation of carnies.
And so they land and they're like, okay, the first thing we're going to do is like their guide is taking them like the first thing we're going to do before you guys do anything. They're still 2 days out from the wrestling event. And they're like, we're going to take you to the fallen dictator's grave.
Oh my.
To like the memorial.
Pay homage.
And so this guy's been almost dead for like almost a year now, but he's like a religious figure there. And so they go to this tomb, and when they get there, there was already tens of thousands of North Korean people just weeping and wailing and crying. And so they were trying to figure out like, wait, were these people like why are they crying? It's been like a year. There's like 10,000 people just mourning. Were they forced to be here? Are they at gunpoint to be here? Like, what is going on? This is super weird.
Wow.
They finally get taken to their hotel.
Now, are we sure that these North Korean weepers and wailers, were those local talent brought in? They were either going to be like, you'd be a rosebud, job out.
Yeah, I don't know that they were paid or that they were brought in per se.
Hoping to get a tryout.
They're like trying out to be an actor.
Right.
They're like, you do this job for us and we will make you a movie star in Hollywood.
Right. Oh my gosh. Bringing their 8x10, bringing their VHS tape to give it to Johnny Laurinaitis. No.
So Ric Flair gets off the plane. The first thing that the tour guide says to Ric Flair is he says, oh, I must tell you, this is not America. And then he was like, yeah, obviously. I mean, like, explain. What do you mean? And she goes, you must not touch our women. And I was, and he said, what? And she said, you must leave our women alone.
Oh my gosh, the nature and he stayed and he went through with it. He didn't just get right back on the plane and say, "Not tonight. I kiss all the girls and make them cry."
It was too late, dude. He was already there.
Oh
And
my
so they get
gosh.
to their hotel, and there's like a ton of pigeons outside the hotel. And all 4 nights they're at this crappy hotel, every night they're getting like, those little like Cornish hens, like a Cornish hen dinner that just tastes like disgusting. And so they're like, dude, this is the worst Cornish hen. They have like the worst chicken here in North Korea. I don't know what's wrong. And by the end of their stay, like Scott Steiner was realizing like, man, there's less and less pigeons.
No.
Well, dude, they were feeding them pigeons at this hotel the whole time from outside.
And you can see like Scott Norton's over there like, hey man, protein's protein.
So they're eating chickens. This story's almost over, but it's so crazy. It is so crazy. And so they're in the hotel. All of a sudden, dude, Scott Norton has been pissed because the whole time he's there, he's been... I mean, dude, this story just sounds like a wrestler story because he said, the whole time I'm there, I'm trying to call my wife, but I just can't get through. Typical like wrestler story. But anyways, he can't get in touch with his wife for a few days. And he finally gets in touch with her, and she starts yelling at him over the phone and is like, you're out there partying and cheating and blah, 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 blah. And Scott Norton's like, listen, babe, you don't understand what kind of shithole we're in here. Immediately, dude, the phone dies. The phone goes dead. Next thing he knows, all of a sudden, like 2 seconds later,
no.
Knock at the door. Dude, armed guards are at the door.
Wow.
And that same tour guide is like, you cannot talk about North Korea like that. They escort him to the underground of the hotel and start like questioning him and stuff. And he's like, oh, you guys don't understand. My wife and I were just in an argument. Like, oh, no offense. We were just getting heated. And then the guide was like, no, you don't understand. We do not argue with our women here.
Oh my goodness. Laying the smackdown on old Scott Norton's marital choices. You'll treat your woman with respect, Scotty. Oh my gosh.
Dude, so it's finally the day of the show, and they all show up to the show, and they're nervous because the whole experience, they've been there for like 3 full days now, and it's just been weird. They're going
I totally forgot there was even going to be a show.
Yes. So they're getting ready for this wrestling show, and the whole time they're in town, so normally in North Korea in 1995, there's only one television channel, and that television channel only has like propaganda and news for like how great Kim Jong-il is, right?
Yeah.
And for the week they're there, they start a second channel, like channel number 2, and all it is showing promos for this wrestling event that's going to happen. And so when they show up to the arena, it's for Flair versus Inoki. There's 190,000 people there, and there's pictures of it online. What? But it's the biggest wrestling event in history, and it's 190,000 people in this huge outdoor coliseum thing, which I don't know what else they used that coliseum for when there wasn't that wrestling thing going on. I guess like worship services for Kim Jong-il or something. But and so all of a sudden, dude, they go out there and the show is opening up, dude, and the whole time everyone is just silent. It's like, when you watch a New Japan show and like it's just quiet in the crowd?
Right. A different type of fan.
Different culture. It's like a lot of these people have never seen wrestling before in their life, and all of a sudden there's like, maybe they're seeing like a white guy and a black guy for the very first time in their life. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, who knows? And so, no joke, they had the biggest event in the history of pro wrestling there in North Korea, and it was a government-mandated event. So 190,000 people were forced to go watch Ric Flair and Antonio Inoki wrestle. But the thing that they said was so cool about it was the whole show is going on, and it was just totally dead silent. But they said by the time Ric Flair made his entrance and they started their match, by the end of their match, the whole stadium was like on its feet and like howling and screaming and like getting so into it. And Ric Flair became like an icon in North Korea.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible. 190,000 people. Like
190,000.
I've heard bits and pieces of that story before, but I never knew that it was that many people that actually came to the show.
The biggest wrestling show in history. And then the last thing that they had was after the thing was all said and done, they had a statement, quote unquote, by Ric Flair that was published in the like government run newspaper the next day. And so they just had the weirdest week ever. But here is the only statement they had from one of the wrestlers. And this was Ric Flair's statement, quote unquote. Before I leave this beautiful and peaceful country, I would like to make a tribute to the great leader, Mr. Kim Il-sung, who had devoted his life to the Korean people's happiness, prosperity, and Korean unification. His Excellency Kim Il-sung will always be with us in our hearts.
Dude, I think I would pay like $50 to hear that statement read in Ric Flair's voice. I cannot for the life of me do a Ric Flair voice, but that statement is so funny to hear him actually say that. Man, there's got to be video of this somewhere. Like somewhere
Dude.
in some like North Korean bunker, there has to be a video of the largest wrestling show in the history of the world.
There's some little bit of footage out there, some pictures, but
nobody's been back since.
Nobody's been back since. The reason why the reason why it got even publicity was because like a year and a half ago, Dennis Rodman went to North Korea because Dennis Rodman, who also wrestled in WCW like 20 years ago, he is like friends with Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
The grandson, and was like over there hanging out with him. And so that's why Sports Illustrated did this super long article. Like it was like a 20-page article all about this. It's super fascinating.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible. Dude, Ric Flair. Man, like Ric Flair on like North Korean currency. Like if that's a real thing, that's a collector's item. We got to find it.
Dude, imagine if in North Korea the currency only has the Father, Son, and Grandfather, or Father, Son, and Holy Spirit of North Korean religion.
Yeah.
And Dennis Rodman and Ric Flair. And that's just all their currency. That would be like I want to move there. I mean,
I know, right? I mean, of all,
maybe not.
You know, of all the other stuff, all the negatives, all the cons of living there. I mean, hey, if you got Ric Flair and the Worm in the presidential inner circle, like, dude, that's a country that's going places.
Yeah.
Straight to the Marriott, brother.
Dude, straight to the top, man. We're going
Lord.
to North Korea.
I love it. That's a great
So
true
that's my
wrestling
story.
fable. Oh my gosh.
That
And-
may or may not be real.
Right. Allegedly. All of it. Dude, the eating pigeons part, that part is hilarious.
That is gross.
Yeah. I don't know. What is the weirdest thing you ever eat like that? Have you ever eaten any weird meats?
I've eaten bat.
wow.
Before in Indonesia.
Yeah.
And it literally just has, you know how like when you know how like some fish just has like catfish has like 1 million bones in it?
Yeah.
That's how bat is, but it's like bat bones.
Weird. Yeah.
It's disgusting.
I've
What about you?
I ate some goat in the mountains of Mexico once. And they called it barbacoa, and I was like, "Oh, that's what I always get at Chipotle." But apparently barbacoa in the mountains of Mexico is not, shredded beef, well seasoned. Apparently, it's very greasy goat served.
You were
in
like, "I'll have
large
the goat
chunks.
burrito,"
Yeah,
thinking
for
it
real.
meant greatest of all time burrito.
Yeah, exactly.
The one dish that I almost ate that same trip when I ate bat, I couldn't stomach to do, but they do a dish where they like remove a monkey's skull cap and you can eat the brain.
Dude,
and that's like a delicacy.
You didn't do it? That's like
No,
Indiana
dude.
Jones stuff.
Dude, I just couldn't bring myself to it. I like my host had found a place that like they were like, yeah, this place will have it, blah blah. But I just was like, oh, this is like, and that's the day I realized I believed in evolution, when I realized.
Dude, do you think they have like get reunions where the Steiners and Scott Norton and Ric Flair get together for like a barbecue, probably in like Scott Norton's backyard, and he's like grilling up some pigeons and stuff like that? Like, do you think they like get together and have a couple of brewskis and tell North Korea stories?
Yeah, dude, it's called the Shoney's Grand Opening.
Dude, one of these days, man, you and me, we are going to Scott Steiner's Shoney's outside of Atlanta.
Yep.
We're
going to sell it all, dude, and pursue it.
Have you ever eaten at a Shoney's?
My mom used to be a manager of a Shoney's.
You shut your mouth right now, Tony Sai. Oh my gosh.
I swear, dude.
Dude.
When I was like a little kid, my mom was in school getting her degree to be a teacher. And then she had me as like a little kid, but she also was like the manager and a waitress at a Shoney's.
Wow.
And they had that little like bear thing as their...
Yeah, the Shoney's bear. Yeah, I was a huge fan of the breakfast bar. There was Shoney's all over Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where I grew up. Oh my gosh. Shoney's, man. That's why I was always been obese as a child, because it's too many trips to the breakfast bar.
Like, they just like, instead of giving me a pacifier, it was just like another little sausage link,
Plenty of nacho cheese on the eggs. Oh my God. Okay.
Now I'm getting hungry.
I know, right? Okay. All right. You ready for my story?
Dude, I was born ready.
You damn right. You damn right. Okay.
You're damn right.
You damn right. All right. Okay. Harley Race.
Ooh.
The man. The greatest wrestler on God's green earth. Okay. So that's who my story is about. And I feel a little weird because this podcast is like fun and funny and everything like that. But this one has like a dark moment, like as dark as it possibly can get. But then it has a good ending. Okay. So stick with me, Tony.
Does it have to do with violence?
Like worse than violence. Like,
oh God.
Oh yeah. This is bad. Okay. I'm like, I'm questioning my choices now. Anyway. All right. But, okay. So Harley Race, one of my favorite wrestlers. Are you a Harley fan?
I am. Kansas City man.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
We got that connection with him.
Right. Exactly. I love Harley Race. He's just a badass. And the more I find out about Harley Race, the more I love him. So Harley Race, when he was a teenager, he got his driver's license at 15. Right. And so he breaks into the business by like hanging around this wrestling promotion in like a little bit up north in Missouri in a town called Maryville. And he starts driving this guy named Happy Humphrey. Okay. Happy Humphrey weighed 800 pounds. Legit. Like, Google Happy Humphrey. Allegedly.
800 pounds.
Harley was not only responsible for driving him, but also for making sure that Happy kept some level of hygiene. And so allegedly there was bathing rituals.
Oh
with
God,
Happy
I'm
Humphrey.
looking him up right now.
Dude, with a mop and a hose. Like they would just he would just sit down or lay down somewhere and Harley would take a mop to him and then spray him off with the hose. But anyway, that's besides the point. But that's
holy crap, this guy is a big boy.
Dude, I know, right? 800 pounds. I feel like there's got to be a story that we can tell in a later episode that's just about Happy Humphrey. Like,
how did you even afford to get that fat back then? Like, it wasn't like there was dollar McDoubles. Like, what were you eating like?
Well, Tony, they were probably 5-cent McDoubles.
Ooh. Oh God, to go back to those days.
I know, right? So anyway, so that's how Harley broke in. All right. And then when Harley was 18-ish years old, he moved to Nashville and he teamed up with this guy named John Long, and he wrestled as Jack Long for a little bit, and they were the tag team champs in Nashville. Okay. And so that brings us to 1960. That's when that happened. And Harley was about 18 years old. Okay. So Harley had gotten married 1 month before. All right. So it is Christmas night, 1960. Harley Race is 17, 18 years old.
Oh God, I can feel where this is going, man.
Oh yeah. This is where it gets dark. Okay. So stay with me. Okay.
Okay.
Harley Race got married about a month before that. Okay. To a wonderful woman named Vivian Louise Jones. Okay. Vivian and Harley and Vivian, Viv and Harley, they are driving back home to Missouri for Christmas. All right. They've been married about a month, driving back home, 1960, Harley Race, new in the business, promising future, 18 years old. They're driving. Semi-truck is coming the other direction. Okay. And this semi-truck tries to pass another semi-truck. And as they're coming up over a hill, meets head on with Harley Race and his wife in the car. They both tried to get out of the way, but it was pretty much a head-on collision. So at the top of the hill, you've got the semi-truck that's trying to pass the other one, comes over into Harley's lane. Definitely not his fault. Tried to get out of the way, but head-on collision. Wife dies instantly. And she was pregnant with their first child.
Yikes.
I'm sorry. It got dark. Okay.
Ooh.
Instantly dies. Harley ends up in the hospital there in Maryville, and he is banged up like you would not believe. Doctors are talking about amputating his leg, telling him he'll never walk again. I mean, so there you have an 18-year-old Harley Race, has only been wrestling for a couple of years. He's been driving around Happy Humphrey. He just lost his wife and unborn child, only been married for about a month. And here he is laying in a hospital bed. Doctors want to amputate the leg. And in walks a wrestling promoter by the name of Gus Karras. Okay. And that is who originally got Harley into the business. That's who Harley was bugging to, help set up the ring and be involved. And that is who first hired Harley to drive around Humphrey. So Gus Karras shows up at the hospital and the doctor is saying, we're going to amputate the leg. And Gus Karras says, over my dead body, this is not happening. We're not amputating that leg. And Gus goes to Harley and he's like, look, we can get this taken care of. Let's save this leg. We'll find somebody to do it. So Gus takes responsibility for him and says, we're going to make this better. We're going to get through this. Okay. So they find a specialist. And at this point, they're not even thinking about ever being able to wrestle again, ever. They're just we just want to save this leg so he can walk again. So they find a specialist. And they go up to St. Joe, Missouri, or actually I think it's down to St. Joe, Missouri, which is a slightly bigger town than Maryville. And they find a specialist and they find a doctor that is able to save Harley's leg. They put in
Dude, that's a great movie title. Save Harley's leg.
Right? Exactly. Save Harley's leg. They put in 4 metal screws right below his right knee. And then they put 2 braces and 12 pins in his left forearm.
Whoa.
We're talking Terminator style rebuilding of this guy's body. Okay. So, but they saved the leg. They didn't have to amputate, all because Gus Karras showed up at the right moment and said, no, talk the doctor out of amputating, and then took it upon himself to find a specialist. And they found a specialist in St. Joe, fixed it. Okay. So Harley he's going to live. He's going to walk. So a couple of years of rehab later, Harley is going to have his first match back.
Wow.
So Harley calls Gus on the phone and the doctors the whole time, they're like, eventually somewhere along the rehab, they were like, yeah, we got to get him back in the ring. And the doctors are just like, no way. That's never happening. If he walks again, there's no way he's ever going to wrestle again. Right. And so here we are, fast forward. I think it was a year or 2 before he had he came back to have another match, but he calls Gus Karras on the phone and he says, I don't care whatever it costs. I'll pay you back eventually, but we have got to get the doctor that saved my leg. We have got to get him here for my first match back so he can see that.
Whoa.
So Gus Karras somehow gets a hold of that doctor, gets him down to St. Joe for Harley's first match back after years of rehab. And Harley goes, has a great match. And after the match, he has the doctor stand up and introduces the doctor to everyone and thanks him for saving his life, saving his career. Thanks Gus Karras, tells the whole story, right?
Saving his leg.
Yeah, for saving his leg. And so that promoter, the Greek promoter, Gus Karras, he was the promoter all over the Central States, and he would put his promotion on hiatus in the summertime, and he would travel with the circus instead. But that guy, because he showed up that night, Christmas night, when Harley was in the hospital going to lose his leg and said, over my dead body, Gus Karras saved the career of Harley Race before it even got started.
The NWA champion.
The greatest wrestler on God's green earth. Thank you, Gus Karras, for stepping in and helping Harley out in his time of need. That's my story.
Wow. Dude, that was awesome. Okay, does that guy get a royalty check, or how does that work?
Right? Yeah.
How does that work? Or does that when that carnival guy who takes him in, the promoter, does he Gus, is he hey, yeah, I'm going to fix you up, but I need 10% of everything you're going to make for the rest of your life.
Right?
Is that how it works back then?
Dude, I guess. I don't know. But I do know, and I've heard Harley tell portions of this story before. And I mean, there's great affection that he has for Gus Karras. And he totally acknowledges him as this guy. he saved not only my life, but saved my career. You know, like, I mean,
Yes.
think about that, dude. Like in a terrible car wreck, you lose your wife, lose your unborn child. You've only been married for a month. It's Christmas. And then they tell you like, yeah, you're never going to be able to walk again. We're going to have to take your leg. And you're 18 years old. That's the part that blows my mind. Is this?
No, that's literally like as crazy
18?
as like when, yeah, it's like when people come back amputated or something from like the war as an 18-year-old or something like that. It's just like, whoa,
Dude,
your whole life is different now.
Like, what were you doing when you were 18 years old? You know what I mean? Like,
dude, nothing.
Harley Race was a tag team champion in Nashville, married with a kid on the way. And we're sitting here podcasting
Times were
about
so
pro
different
wrestling.
back then, I guess. Yeah, he wasn't picking his nose making a wrestling podcast. He was doing life.
He was living it up, man. But yeah, isn't that crazy? And
that is a true wrestling fable if I've ever heard one.
Yeah. You know,
my hope is that through this podcast, we'll just get to meet like every old wrestler that ever exists before they die.
Dude, and that was like just the beginning of Harley's career. Like he had only been in the business for like a year or two. Nobody even knew who he was really yet. And he went on from after that point to become, you know, one of the, 8-time NWA champion, like one of the greatest wrestlers.
He was Triple H is favorite. He's like Triple H's favorite wrestler. Yeah. And he's supposed to be like a legitimate tough guy.
Oh, dude. I mean, the legend has it that he could break your hand just by shaking your hand.
Dude, I have curly hair. I could maybe pull off this like short afro pork chop into a mustache. You know, maybe I should be Harley Race for.
Go for it, dude.
Get that be that for Halloween next year.
Dude, bleach it blonde, brother. But yeah, I love Harley Race's tattoos. I loved his ring gear, the little track jackets and stuff that he would wear, and that falling headbutt he would do. But
dude,
yeah,
the headbutt and the moveset, that's not around much anymore.
Yeah, I think a lot of people learned their lesson, but Harley
too many hits to the head.
Did it till the end. So yeah.
Wow.
Man, these are great stories.
These are great stories. If you have great stories and you're listening, email them into us. TrueWrestlingFables@gmail.com.
And they don't even have to be true, right? Just put an allegedly in there. I mean, you got to at least think they're a little true,
Provide a link or say what interview it came from, or
give us a footnote. All right, do your homework, kids. Do your homework.
We'll wrestling fact check you.
Right, exactly. And you fact check us. If we mess these stories up, let us know.
Oh, God.
I think I just opened a Pandora's box.
Well, when Jonathan said, actually, it was in 1967, Harley broke his leg.
No. I know that none of you listeners are that way.
No. And you don't have voices that sound like that. And even if you did, we'd still love you.
We'd still love you, and we recommend you don't get in radio.
Some people just don't have a voice for radio.
They say I have a great look for radio.
Yeah, actually, legit. Like my major in college was broadcast and film, and all of my teachers, they're like, "Yeah, you got a face for radio, son." And I was like, "Thank you." I wonder how many years has that joke worked on your various victims in your classrooms?
Insecure, like 19-year-old college students harassing them.
Right, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I think it's a compliment at first," and then they realize, "Wait a minute, nobody can see my face on the radio." So.
Dude, I know for a fact there's going to be more Harley Race tales because there is. I just know off the top of my head a couple that are pretty crazy. So,
dude, I know which one you're talking about too. And folks, if you know which one we're talking about, just hold on to your hats, okay? Don't go blasting these stories all over the place. Just hold tight. Stay with us.
Just wait.
Just wait.
Just wait.
Because that's not the story we told today. Harley Race losing his leg. That's the least crazy thing that ever happened to Harley Race.
Exactly.
Dude, you want to go get some pigeons?
Dude, I actually was thinking of getting a McPigeon today. I heard they're 2 for $3.
Right on. Dude, speaking of McPigeon, I had a McRib the other night.
Oh, no way. The McRib is back.
Yeah.
That thing has had more returns than Ric Flair, dude, to the wrestling world.
Exactly. It's like the Terry Funk of fast food. It just keeps coming back. Like, this is the last time ever. No, it's not. McRib forever, forever, forever.
Dude, I wonder if I mean, I'm in the Midwest, so I'm sure it's here. I mean, I'm sure I can go find it.
Yeah, they have them out here on the West Coast. I mean, I got one right out here in Santa Monica the other night. I had not had a McRib up until last night. I had not had a McRib since they like first put them out. Like when I was 8 years old and Sinbad was doing the McRib commercials.
So, dude, that's like 95.
Yeah, that was when WCW went to North Korea. Man, hold on a second. I was going to ask this before or back when you were telling your story, but I forgot until right now. Do you think Vince McMahon is slightly jealous of Ted Turner's involvement with the largest wrestling show ever? Or does he just like ignore it? Like, never happened. Went to Dallas Stadium, WrestleMania 32.
No, it definitely, it's like one of those things. He's never openly admitted it out loud that it happened.
Yeah.
But it sits in the back of his mind. And he's like, before he dies, that's what he wants to do.
He's probably in talks already with, Kim Jong, come get some, whatever his name is that's in charge now.
He's like, Linda, when you go in to work with the Small Business Bureau for Donald Trump's cabinet, can you put in a good word with Donald to get me in touch with Kim Jong-un? I must do a wrestling event over there.
We got to beat WCW. Too much fun.
Oh my gosh.
All
so
right.
the McRib is back. Here's the question I have for you though. How was it?
Oh, dude, it's Pigeon for sure.
For those of you guys that have never eaten a McRib, it's like meat that's been ground up and then pressed into a patty that's shaped like it has bones in it, but it doesn't.
Right. It's like when you make hot dogs, there's got to be like a little bit of waste whenever you make a hot dog, like, the leftovers.
It turns into a McRib.
It's the leftovers of the hot dog. So like hot dogs are like the leftover of, that kind of meat. And then the leftovers of hot dog, that's what they make McRib out of, I think. I don't know. That's what it tastes like to me. And then they slather it in like overly sweet barbecue sauce. Yeah.
There's a pickle on it.
Pickles and onions, bro.
Happy Humphrey.
Yes.
Weighed in at about 1,600 McRibs.
That's true. 1,600 McRibs. Man.
Well, guys, if you haven't already, you probably haven't. But if you're still here, follow us on Twitter, Wrestling Fables. Follow us on Facebook, True Wrestling Fables. Instagram, True Wrestling Fables. Shoot us an email, truewrestlingfables@gmail.com. I'm Tony.
I'm Jonathan.
That was so corny. I'm Tony from Columbus, Ohio, the home of Alexa Bliss.
Oh, that's great. She's good. She's good. She's
that was
hot
like
right
a Rick
now.
Ross. Dude,
can I get a rosé?
I follow her on Facebook, and she was like all over Columbus, she was at the Target I shop at,
bro,
the other day.
Dude, we Instagrams all the time of wrestlers out in our neighborhood, but I have never once seen one in the wild out here. Never once, except for that time CM Punk bought me pancakes.
Now that is what I call a true wrestling fable.
More on that next time.
Until next time.
You've been listening to True Wrestling Fables. Go to truewrestlingfables.com to find out how you can join the Fables stable. It's just 3 easy steps and you get free stuff. Join Tony and Jonathan again next Sunday, right here at 6:05 p.m. Thanks for listening.